Welcome back, Mere Mortalites. We are outdoors. If you can see the video right now, you can see our beautiful faces covered by the sun. You've got Juan on this side.
You got Kyron, beautiful here.
And Meanderings is a chance for us to just have a conversation about whatever we want to have a conversation about. It is the 14th of October, 2023. And true to this name, I'm going to start Meanderings with something a little bit random.
Okay, nice.
Perhaps in the face of, I'm going to call myself out. And because we are
Definitely needs it.
Now, often in life, I have to find very specific ways to settle my ego or settle the superiority complex that might arise in most people. Although for me, I know when it sometimes happens and sometimes I don't. But one thing that I haven't taken pride in, but I've taken maybe some satisfaction in is I'll have a cold shower or I'll have a cold bath. And the other day I started going, hey, I'm going to, in fact, this morning, I went, hey, I'm going to have another cold bath, which I'd done yesterday with a couple of ice cubes. But this morning, I woke up nice and early. It's a lot of stuff to get done. I went, I'm going to make this, it's just, you basically go to the bath, turn on the cold water tap, just let it run until it fills up. And I went and got heaps of ice cubes that I put into the freezer, right? Got them all out, put them into the bathtub. And I went, I'm going to have a cold bath. Yeah. It's going to be like real cold, like what they say about how much cold you should be having.
That would reduce it by what, 2 degrees maybe?
Well, I'm also currently listening to a particular podcast from Dave Asprey about cold, and so it's kind of connecting. I've been doing this for a little while now. I haven't actually checked the temperature though. Now, I check the temperature before I put the ice cubes and after I put the ice cubes. Now, in Fahrenheit or in Celsius, I guess roughly to call it like a cold bath, should be 18 degrees Celsius, maybe around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, if you want to, or colder, right? Or colder as you can. But I only had the ice cubes. So just with the cold water, I put the thermometer on top of it just to check it. Now, this is my kid's duck thermometer. So no accuracy here may be swaying, but look, it tells you somewhat. And it was 25 degrees, which at first I went, ooh, this is an affront. I thought I was already doing some cold immersion. That's not cold. That's just like regular temperature.
Pretty much, yeah.
Then added the ice cubes. I went, I'm waiting to see this go sub 20. And it dropped by 0.1 degree.
Yeah.
Right. Now, there was a lot of ice cubes in there. Over 20 ice cubes. Big fat fuckers. And it dropped it by 0.1 degree. Anyways, I got into it. It was cold, but it wasn't in my mind that I went, okay, this is not really cold immersion. No. And I think it was one of those...
And have you been claiming you've been doing cold baths and cold...
In my mind I have. This hasn't been like a publicly... I'm telling people like, I do cold baths in the morning.
Yeah.
It was like...
I'm better than you.
It was like an internal, hey, I'm going to do a cold bath and this is making me feel good for the day.
Gotcha.
So it was one of those where reality sets in, you see it happen and you go, okay, maybe this feeling of internal superiority or ego arising where it's like, I can do this, and then I don't know, life hits you in the face and goes, okay, maybe not so much, but at least you see reality for what it is. And it helped out this morning. So it made me go, okay, cool, I am not doing what I actually think I'm doing. If I wanted to, I'd have to do X, Y, and Z. Am I prepared to put that into that energy? Maybe not. So I guess it helps calibrate that. Have you got anything at the moment in life where life has just, I guess, shown you some reality to maybe where you were deviating, or where maybe your mind was lying to you in some way, and then life just sort of demonstrated to you like, oh no, actually, this is what it is, this is what's happening, or something in between?
I guess one thing I would say is with the podcast, if you'd told me where we're at now, I would have hoped we'd have been further along in terms of listenership.
When we very first started?
Yeah. Okay. If you'd told me, you put in 4 years worth of effort, you'll have, around this many people listening, around this many subscribers, things like that, I'd probably have said, I think I could have done better than that. And that's not to say I don't think we're successful. I think we're very successful in certain regards. But that broad appeal, reaching out to a larger audience, I don't think we've really done that. And just talking with some people about what I do for work has kind of made me think like, maybe in this respect I could say I haven't really, like, am I a podcaster? I'm definitely a podcaster. Am I a successful podcaster? Is podcasting my job? I probably can't say it is as of yet. Yeah. So that's kind of one thing, but no, nothing. Everything else is kind of.
Yeah, actually, playing on that,
no real big ones.
Playing on that idea, the fact that I'm going to be moving into a new place, and I'm preparing myself to have a dedicated studio space. No, it's not going to be like one room is a studio. It'll be used for more things. But to start saying, yes, I'm going to put in quite a bit of effort and, again, some funds to make it a studio that I want to utilize for podcast or content creation and the like, it kind of makes me feel like, okay, I am putting another step forward to make sure that there is some success or there is effort being placed upon it. But I think retrospectively, from the very beginning when we started the podcasts out of your parents' place, if I was to think, hey, where we are today, we should be further, I don't know if I would have. I really try to put myself in that position when we're doing those shows. I would be surprised we've still kept it to this day.
Yeah, and look, quality-wise, if you go onto our Discord as well, you see I posted a picture of the upgrades I made to the studio in my place, so it does have proper phone paneling, and it actually does improve the quality of the sound. I hear it myself when I'm editing. In that regard, yes. But then when I look at the time period, just of 4 years, and I compare what I've succeeded or done with other things over 4-year periods, I don't know, it could just be me getting caught up in like the metrics thing a little bit. And it's mostly just for this one, because there's probably it's the comparison thing. If I check out the book reviews of the Value for Value show, in comparison to the amount of time and effort I've put into them and how they've done compared to this one, the return of value or the output or the measure of success that I've gotten from those feels like a lot more. Could be, once again, I've done this show for a long time, so the learnings I got from this I could apply to them, so I kind of halvened I was coming in with already 2 years of experience, the Value for Value show, for example. So yeah, there's other metrics you could use for that. I still think that
ultimately, fast forward 12 years, that this is going to be the biggest show in our gallery of shows. I would still say. So
100%. Yeah.
I have an absolute feeling that things like the Value for Value show, things like the book review, others that we might do, will have a faster takeoff speed in terms of viewership, or people who are listening in. But that's going to be more niche, more specific. People want to kind of keep on tuning in.
There's only a certain level you can grow to with the Value for Value.
Exactly, where there's going to be a certain level of traction or level of people listening to the broad amount of the Mere Mortals as a podcast, or the entire, what would you call it? Our collection or our gallery? I don't know. But once people are listening to the broadness of it, I think that the Mere Mortals main podcast will then become the bigger thing that people are tuning into. But that isn't going to be... if you had to tell me, when we first began, would that happen in 4 years? I would have said, I don't know. I don't know if it's 4 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah, this is one of those ones. Looking back, yeah, if you'd then told me, okay, this is where you're at, you've actually got some people voluntarily sending in money to you, yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so, that's also true. We wouldn't have thought that from the very beginning at all.
No way.
I've got a bit of a joyful question I want to ask you.
Okay.
And I'll let you ponder on this particular thought, and then I'll kind of share mine, and then we'll want to hear yours.
Sounds good.
Has there been something as of late, or something equivalent, where you've reconnected with a joy from a long time ago, from either an old show, old activities you used to do, maybe from when you were young, maybe young adult, whatever it may be, that's coming to your life and you've reconnected, rekindled, done more of? So ponder on that. I'm gonna share with you, Mere Mortal, something that I don't think I have shared on this particular podcast that often. You might or might not know, I enjoy cars in general. I'm not like an aficionado to a particular brand. I'm not a Ferrari lover or a Mercedes lover or something like that, but I enjoy them more than your usual individual, let's just say. I would talk about cars with a particular person, I'd be able to talk about certain details, maybe not all the way down to its, bare, gearing ratios or something like that, but enough. And weirdly, I reconnected through Netflix has the show Drive to Survive, which is the Formula One show kind of go through the entirety of a particular season. They make it a more of, I don't know, like a dramatic show than it actually is in real life. But I started watching it a couple of months ago. And I just, one, connected with it in a big way in terms of really, really enjoying it. Two, took me back to, I used to watch Formula One racing with my dad quite a lot. Not every single race, but at the time there was a racer called Juan Montoya. So of course I connected because it was, hey, this person's got my name. Two, they're Colombian.
It's me.
Three, they were in Formula One. And so a lot of the times we would watch, let's say 70% of the races, and it would be about, hey, I hope this person wins. A lot of these races were watched at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. We'd wake up at 10 p.m. at night and just stay up the whole night to watch them because we're in Australia, and when the races were, that's just when it was. And there was that time, and I would have been maybe in year 5 or year 6 when I was watching that. But I would also, there was a game called Gran Turismo, I believe it was, Gran Turismo 5. And they had races, which you can also participate in. I played it on the PlayStation. And I was getting to the point that particular game I would play, you would do race. I don't know if you've ever played it before, that particular game.
Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know if you remember, you could do a race.
It was very boring.
20 laps, right? So
You're just doing laps.
I used to do some of the really...
wasn't Grand Theft Auto. There was another racing game.
I think I know we're talking the Need for Speed.
Yes,
Need for Speed.
Correct. Yes.
So Need for Speed, I enjoyed. I also played that. But Gran Turismo, I took some real joy in doing the 5-hour races, the 7-hour races, the 12-hour races. I would do them. I would sit there racing, strategizing, tire, heating, gearing, brake pads. Dude, I would spend so much time doing that. And it was connected with the fact that I was watching a lot of Formula One, a lot of racing. And so very recently, obviously watching Drive to Survive again, I went, oh, damn, I'd really forgotten about this. I recently got myself a subscription so I could watch a lot more of the Formula One races. I found myself just the other day, the race began at 3 in the morning, and I was going into gym. I woke up extra early so I could listen into the race, watch it a little bit while I was at the gym. And I don't know, it just reconnected with this activity, which I really used to enjoy watching, which was Formula One. And obviously seeing it now from 15 years later with a hell of a lot more content. In parts, it made me... I'm not going to lie, this is obviously not what I'm doing it, but it made me feel like, hey, this is a good learning point, because I remember what Formula One production and content was like many, many years ago, and seeing it now, it's like so much better. There's a lot more details put together, which then, you know, part of it makes me go, oh, could I like learn some things here to apply it on the podcast? But that's all, like, you know, that's not even secondary. That's like 5-7 levels down. The primary joy is, hey, I've forgotten how much I enjoy just watching racing, hearing engines sort of going around, seeing the fights, the drama that can happen, I guess, through Drive to Survive. You see it very directly and probably artificially created, but through an actual race, you see it happening through. And I went, I'd forgotten how much I enjoy this. I'm going to make some time to enjoy this in not a day today. This happens every twice a month or something like that. But I go, yeah, I'm gonna be okay with losing some effectiveness or efficiency in my life to put some energy into that, because I really find it as a joyful thing. So that's been a nice rekindling of from something from a long time ago.
Which is good. I think one of the things that the trap that us two could get trapped into was, and you would have heard it in the latest Musings episode, where I was saying the whole point of goal setting for me is almost just to try and make things fun and to not get lonely or depressed. And that is the most productive thing ever for me, is just to long term is just to have a good mental state, and goal setting and that activity of doing that actually really helps me. So I think that kind of thing is beneficial, especially when you've got so much going on. You know, when I first heard that, I pondered and I went, you know what, I think I've actually had some decreases, if anything.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of things are just a little bit less fun. The handstanding, for example. Just going through this phase at the moment where it's just a bit more difficult. My wrists are getting sore. I'm having to take some time off. It's not as fun. Reading, I've kind of read a bunch of average books in a row. There's nothing that's been really standout. But one thing, and this will link to the next point, was dating. And dating for me is very a Jekyll and Hyde sort of experience.
Yeah, okay.
It sucks.
And you've had quite a bit of dates recently, or at least planned dates.
Well, kind of,
planned
yeah.
dates.
Yeah, and it's very much, when it's going bad, it's just, I get so pissed off. My mental state goes down. no real reason. You know, it's just as much about the girl as it is about me. But, you know, things outside of me affect me, for sure. It'd be nice to be stoic all the time, but I can't do that. But when I do have just like a really nice date or just a really nice interaction with someone, my confidence levels just go fucking sky high, man. It's insane. And so I had this experience the other day where I forget what it's like to be confident. Truly, you know, the what is it, like big dick energy, the swagger, you look at someone and they're like, oh, that's a confident dude.
Yep.
And it doesn't
big
need
baller
to
club levels.
Yeah, exactly. And so I went to this crypto event. You sent me this thing, linked to it a while ago. It was the DLTX kind of like party thing. I was like, yeah, screw it. I've got some time this Thursday evening. I said I wanted to go out to more events, stuff like that. All right, I'm going to go. So I went out to the Howard Smith Wharves, and I was just on fire, man.
Okay.
Yeah. I think from a date a previous weekend or something like that, or I can't even remember. It wouldn't have been too much before. I walked in, and everything was like
just
clicking. I walked. You have to take these elevators down the cliffs. I was chatting with this guy in the elevator. There was like some hot girls next to me. They were already like, I could get the vibes from them. They're like, look at this guy. He's just like making friends with everyone, sort of deal. I walk in, and I'm like, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies. See an old friend who I'd met a couple of times at these events. Hadn't seen him for ages. Found out he lives really close to me. This other guy, I was chatting with him. He was kind of like really interested in me. So interested that he actually asked me if I wanted to go on like a long walk with him on like a Saturday sometime.
Nice.
I was just like, dude, I'm kind of busy. But it was just so refreshing, man, just to have this confidence all the time. And I want to know, when you think of confidence and your levels and the ego and stuff like that, where do you think you sit in terms of the general population, and is it possible to be at that level, to sustain that level, do you think? As in, that experience that I just had, where do you think that would rank on an average day for you? Is that just an average day? Or, because confidence definitely varies from people to people, and there are some people you see who are just confident
that's a good point.
all the time, whereas I'm very much not that.
Yeah, I think it differs. You have to split that particular question into the internalization and the external interpretation of the confidence. Because in the way that maybe you've just said that, I would say for me, it might be more regular to look like that externally.
Because there can be people who, project it.
Exactly, like externally.
Internally, they're all
like externally
they're a mess.
no, that's not every day, but I can artificially, or I can make that happen quite often. Not every time, but quite often externally. I'll give you an example. This week, like part of it, I've almost felt like, man, I've just been burning out at both ends. Like, there's just been so many things, a lot of things to deal with on a work, personal, finances perspective, madness. But in a lot of it, I've been able to externally show a lot of confidence just because I can or I can flick the switch in some aspects. But internally, it's not felt like that at all. If I go to my notes for like a day-to-day recently, it's been very much like, wow, it's kind of, I'm glad that I'm able to do the things I need to get done throughout the days, but man, I'm like struggling to be just like mentally having to, I've got to go like do this, I've got to go do that, I've got to go do this. There's no real confidence in doing a lot of things. So there's a difference between that. But I think what you're talking about, that particular experience, is almost, it's like the alignment of external confidence is like firing, and internal confidence is firing. Sometimes you get expressed as, you know, what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing is all aligned as well. That's what I would think about as like full confident mode. Look, I'd say
it's kind of wasted if you're not going out to a crypto event. And if I'd just been at home doing some language learning or something.
No, I disagree. I think wherever it is, I fully cherish that. Because even if you're at home
for me,
doing
it would
that,
be wasted.
It wouldn't be wasted. I'll give you an example. I could be at home. I'll be editing something, and just either have listened to some music or just came from the gym, just in an amazingly good mood, and I go, hell yeah! Like, I'm just so confident. I'm gonna like smash out this edit, then do this interview, then do this like talk, then I'll do this. I'll just fly through it without even interacting with other people. So I think you can have that confidence in even yourself in doing acts. But yeah, specifically that feeling, I'd say it's still kind of rare, and maybe it would happen once a fortnight. It happens a lot for me at the gym, doing gym things. Why? Because I don't even have to like sugarcoat this. I think I've become good enough at enough things that on average, I'm probably better than your average person at many things. So like on a mere mortal's perspective, I'm like hitting top mere mortal levels at just about everything. So I don't know. If you went to the average person, I could try to hold a handstand for a little bit. I can do that. So I lift on heavy. I could go and do lots of different movements. So there's a lot of when I hit like a really fun session, and a fun session for me at the moment, I'm slowly moving into a more of a powerlifting session. So I'll go do, heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, heavy benching. I'll be doing intervals of handstand walks or like handstand push-ups. I might do then like a long run, and all of these things combined just put me in like a ridiculously confident mood, both externally and internally. So maybe I'll experience that once a fortnight. And man, yeah, I love when that happens. Like I definitely love that when that happens. Specifically when you're talking about dating, I remember not dates, but I remember going out, meeting people, seeing people. And I remember that when I aligned with those two, when I was like externally confident, internally confident, let's say they happen 25% of the times, man, that was like wonderful nights, wonderful events, wonderful days when that happened. And I would look forward to try to simulate that more.
Yeah. See, I can't turn it on. I can't predict it. Why was it that day and not the day before? There's no real difference between the 2 days. And just in my general disposition, no matter how good I get at things. So here's an example. When I was 21, no, even earlier, because I was at uni. So I must have been 20 or 19. I wrote this little sheet for myself of goals that I wanted to hit by 26. I don't know why I chose 26, but yeah, it was. And it was completely arbitrary. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have traveled Latin America. I want to have be able to speak another language. I think there was something about playing piano decently, because I was practicing piano a little bit then. I want to, have found like an amazing girl or something like this. And I look back now and I'm like, you know what? I've done most of those things. A little bit later, sure, but I've done them. Has that then made my confidence up to 100% level? No, honestly, I'm probably day to day. If my confidence was a 2 out of 10 when I was 19, it's probably a 4 out of 10 now. Just on a day-to-day sort of thing. On
like an average.
Yeah, that's an average day. I'd say a 4 out of 10. I probably have a couple of more negative thoughts than I do have positive ones of hyping myself up or things like that. And so I just go, shit. No matter what I do, this is where I think meditation and philosophy comes in a bit to help dampen the blow of that, because there's no point fucking spending all this time trying to achieve these things, because for me personally, it doesn't result in a happier, more well-lived life. And even if externally the world is a better place and my internal world is shambles, I don't know if it
would still feel shambles.
Yeah, I'd rather make the external world a little bit less better to make my internal world better, if I could make that trade-off. But I don't have to leave it a pool. It's very much it happens sometimes and other times it doesn't. So going on from that, I guess, is so let's not talk about Vienna. You've got a new baby in the works, and you can pull a lever to up their stats on some metric that you choose. So obviously I was talking about confidence here, but it could be intelligence, it could be looks, it could be charm, it could be wit, it could be whatever, athletic ability. And there's no trade-offs. So you've got your CRISPR thing and you... What metric, if any, would you choose to up?
Ooh, that's interesting.
And by how much as well?
That's interesting.
So while you think about that, I was pondering this, and I went, okay, just for myself, let's say I did have the lever crank, up the confidence to 8 out of 10 daily. Sure, there would be a whole lot of good things that come from that. Internally, I would feel better. I would certainly be more adventurous with certain aspects in terms of telling a risque joke, trying out new things, not being afraid to fail and look silly. But in terms of the ego, I could see that having a profound impact on me being a bit more arrogant and potentially being a bit of a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, if I could pull that lever, I'm not sure I'd want to. I'm not sure it would be a great thing. Mm-hmm. And if I did, it would be a little bit. It would maybe, instead of cranking up to an 8 out of 10, maybe just make it 5.5 or something.
Okay. Yeah, like just a little bit better, but not too much, or else it'll go downside.
so that those potential negatives, they're not going to be completely life-altering negatives.
Yeah. The only thing that would come to mind, and amongst many things, and I think you could make good calls for a lot, but then equally find a lot of negatives around a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd say I'd crank the lever on like the quality of perseverance, but not all the way. Not 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Otherwise, you go on monk mode.
Yeah, I'm going 7. I'm going like 7 out of 10. If I was like 7, 8 out of 10 perseverance level, so it'd be, if you could give them by default whatever task or thought they go towards it. I guess it blends with like a disciplined mindset, but that's more of a ability less than a quality, I guess. So that like a quality of perseverance by default, I'd go, yeah, I would want them to have that. I guess if I was thinking about myself or another person, if you had a high level of perseverance, like a day-to-day, you would be less inclined to be dissuaded by something else, whether it's hedonically, whether it's because you want to just follow somebody else. If you persevere with the right path, then sounds to me like you'd go well. So I'd probably say perseverance as a quality.
Okay.
But I think you can have some troubles if you were to say go all the way to 10 out of 10 for many qualities.
For sure. Because then you could have the ultra marathoner who just keeps going and going and going, runs
like
until they
break.
destroy themselves, and then run even further because fuck it, I haven't gone far enough. I can do more. And yeah, it's probably not that good for you.
Yeah. If anything, I'd say perseverance to a certain level. Where is there more joy to be found? In being a mere mortal or being the top, the world champion at something? Where's more joy found?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because I kind of go, that maybe there is some extreme short-lived joy that is found in the absolute top individuals, but then is followed or preceded by a lot of suffering and negativity and expectations, whereas a mere mortal with that level of expectations, yes, is not a higher peak, but there may be more continuous joy to be had and less suffering because expectations being set to a different level. So, the more I think about it, I go, yeah, I think the quality would have to be something that helps set expectations to an adequate level where someone can, go after something, but not to such an extreme that it precedes and maybe after whatever is achieved or action is taken, there's another bout of suffering.
Yeah, I was thinking about this so in the case example I gave you was for a baby. It's a completely new form. There's no, and you're just shifting one lever. I think I wouldn't be comfortable doing that for anything because even all the best ones, you think, what's one of the best metrics of success for life? High IQ, that really equates to better outcomes. It also equates to more neuroticism, and if you go into the high end of the scale, depression and loneliness. Some of the most brilliant people have miserable lives, and I think it's above average proportions for that as well. So it's well, fuck, okay, I don't want that for my kid. Do I want to up the confidence? Okay, well then what if they're too confident?
True.
Do I want to up the I'm trying to think of a metric that is just universally good with no downsides, and I'm struggling to think of something. Maybe something like height.
Maybe not in the direct linkage to a quality, but if I had to postulate what you would try to do is whatever optimizes for an individual to socialize with their community at a maximal level, because one, being in you know in
Even that,
social.
because you can be over socialized. I think you can be too in tune with other people, too empathetic, and it destroys you. It breaks your heart. You start having to try to protect everyone because you're looking out for the little people all the time. So I think you can take everything too far, and that's why it would be. I'd crank the lever of maybe after, Vienna after a year, and you probably have started to notice maybe some characteristics of her, and maybe it's more apparent when they're 3-4 years old, and then you're like, okay, this little lever here, I could see this be
like a beneficial thing.
Yeah, just a little, and that's why, because I can certainly think of people I've met in my life where they're an arsehole. They're just like complete dickhead. But if you could just crank down the ego a little bit, or maybe their intelligence, and that would just kind of solve their problems, and that'd actually be an okay person.
That'd be a okay thing. One piece that I would say I really want to get.
What about for yourself? What if you could crank a lever? What would you do? Anything that's would be nice for old Juan I?
Nah, I wouldn't crank any lever. I'd leave them all as this. I think there would be. Why is because now, after many years of working, inspecting, retrospecting, whatever you want to call it, I've put myself in many positions where I enjoy the things I do. I've managed my feelings both on rational, conscious, subconscious, emotional levels. If I was to shift something, what it would just feel like, it would have to put a lot of other effort to just get back to a place where I could manage a lot of those feelings. Yeah. So, yes, I could say to you, well, crank discipline to 10, crank happiness, crank whatever. But what that would happen is it now sets myself that I need to put quite a lot of effort into getting back to a manageable level. Because if I say discipline 10, that just means I'm going to get myself really injured really quickly because I said I'm going to do 20 kilometers, so I'm going to do it no matter if I injure myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so there would be a new amount of effort that I would have to go on, set myself to manage myself and balance myself. Would you change anything? Would you shift a lever there somewhere?
Yeah, just the confidence up a little bit I think would help, but anything else?
It's dicey. It's dicey to manipulate that and change that.
Yeah, it's just seeing how would I be, how would I come across if I, neuroticism, I'm probably a little bit higher on that scale than most people. If I put that down a little bit, how would that impact other aspects of my life? Would I then start to become less introspective? Would that be a good thing? I'm not sure, because being introspective has helped me a lot of times with realizing I've got a problem in this certain case. Okay, how can I go about solving it? Yeah. The worst thing about being an arsehole is you probably don't realize you're an arsehole. And so that's like the main problem, because if you did, then you'd go and fix it. Certainly the biggest arseholes I've met have thought they were top shit.
And don't realize that they're actually not.
Yes, correct.
Speaking of though, just fun levers, if I could pull a small lever for my child, is that she's almost at the point of doing a planche. So I honestly didn't think that babies went through this particular phase, but they go on they go on their hands and knees, right?
Yeah.
And they go on their hands and knees and they rock. However, I didn't realize that they also go into push-up mode. So they do push-up mode.
Okay.
But Vienna's doing it with her legs really spread out, really quite wide.
Yeah.
And then she'll lean forward on her arms and lift her legs up.
It's because her head's so heavy.
So she's basically balancing for quarter of a second on just her hands, just up. And I'm like, damn, I'm not even doing that. So if I could pull the lever, so she could hold it for 2 seconds. So she could be doing like planches at 5 months old.
Pull the literal lever of heavier head. I mean, shit. Yeah, maybe that'd be a good one, right? Just heavier head. Would certainly improve.
Like Karen's going to pull the lever of no legs.
Would make my handstands better. Would make my handstands better. Lower center of gravity. Make my planches way easier. That's for sure.
There you go.
Probably wreck my shoulders though. So
you should probably just put like a plated weight around your head, just like a 10-kilo weight just around it, and that should stabilize you.
Yeah. Maybe. All right, last one. Let's talk about some languages. Let's talk about language learning. So.
Language.
Do you know the difference between el orden y la orden?
El orden y la orden.
Yeah, in Spanish.
No.
So this was one I came across the other day, and so Juan's fluent Spanish speaker, although not native, maybe not fluent, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
how
don't
to
know.
describe you. Yours is a hard one.
My one would be I'm a native speaker with limited word language.
Yeah,
like
something
native
like that.
speaker to like a 12-year-old. Yep.
Yeah.
That would be. That'll be
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So, and I speak Spanish relatively well. And I was just researching this because I was starting to do some Portuguese. So I was actually getting into it. And I was just looking up what are some of the basic things. Okay, they've got the masculine, feminine, very similar to Spanish. Sure, there's a couple of like false friends type of things there.
Mm-hmm.
So the most annoying one, right? So if you're learning Spanish, everyone makes this mistake. Embarazada. You think, oh, embarazada, that sounds a lot like embarrassed. There's not many words that sound very as similar as that.
Yep.
So you start using estoy embarazada.
Mm-hmm.
I'm embarrassed. You think you're saying wrong.
Wrong.
You're saying I'm
Saying
pregnant.
and you said it wrong. Estoy embarazado.
Do.
But
Correct.
yes, that does mean pregnant.
And so what? I was looking this up, and then in Portuguese, they've got another one very similar.
Oh, really?
I can't remember exactly what it was because I only just looked at it and I didn't hear the pronunciation, which is come to in a sec. Very similar. It's like embarazado, jadu, or something like that,
Okay.
and it means confused. So now
Jeez.
there's like 3 different words, and so a false friend for those who don't know is basically it's a word in another language that seems very similar to what a word in your language, which happens a lot of times. Diferente in Spanish, okay, it means the same thing. A false friend is when it doesn't mean, and it's actually it's switching you up. It's a friend who is not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came across that, and so just to answer that, el orden is like the order of nature or a pattern. It's an order.
Okay.
La orden is an order. I want you to go do that.
Gotcha.
You know,
Okay.
this is
I thought that was roughly what it was, but I was like, oh, I don't actually know.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess maybe you could put it. La orden is when you're actually ordering something. El orden is when it's something that it's like. La orden is a directive. El orden is when it's already there as an order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's more. They're different things.
Yes, yep.
It'd be like comparing pattern versus request. They're completely different. And so I just came across that and I went, okay, there's no way Juan probably doesn't know this one. When you're teaching Vienna Spanish, what Spanish level do you reckon she's going to get to? Because she's got obviously the grandparents,
family.
so
Yeah.
that'll help a lot. But your partner, I'm not sure how her Spanish is going, if she's going to ever get to a level where she'll be speaking at home.
Conversational.
What do you reckon Vienna's Spanish will come out looking
I would
like
say
if she doesn't know something like that?
It would be at a lower order than mine because it's unlikely that we will be speaking such a conversational term at home. It'll be likely words with some linkages, and usually with languages, she'll probably understand more than she'll actually speak. Realistically, I think that she'll be able to read some Spanish, understand Spanish, but when it comes into the conversational mode, no, unless she's then puts effort to get into the conversational. I could see her understanding manos, pies, cabeza, right?
Yeah.
Things, hands, feet, head, but not a conversation in Spanish. I think that'll be a little bit less so, unless, depending on how she grows up, how often she spends time with my family directly.
Correct,
And then
yeah.
maybe she will pick up more of a conversational
I was going to ask,
pace.
were you planning on speaking Spanish with her? So Pete Smithson, been on the podcast a bunch of times. He only speaks Portuguese at home with his family, and then his kids learn English, obviously, in kindergarten, things like that. Were you planning on doing that as well, Spanish at home, or
No, definitely not. I think I would still most definitely, although we haven't talked about it super deep, English is going to be the predominant thing.
French?
Well, in a lot of day-to-day items that I do with her at the moment, I'll go through 3 different languages with her. So I'll routinely do this thing with her of head, hands, shoulders, knees, toes, feet. I'll go through that in English, then in Spanish,
When do
then in
babies start
French.
talking?
9 months, 12 months.
Okay,
that's
she's
sort of like goes.
not
It's
too
still a
far
while.
off.
So it's still a few months away.
Yeah.
I go through body parts and things in a day-to-day basis in all 3 languages, but still in a conversational way, I don't think that there would be, an adherence to, okay, I'm only going to speak Spanish, I'm only going to speak French. Nah, not at all. I would more say to get an understanding of some of the languages, to see interesting things, but never to the point that's going to be conversational. And I would also say that it's because I'm also not learning languages to get to a conversational level. With French, I'm not trying to get to natural conversational language, not to that, but to like a good extent that I can understand things. Definitely not with Japanese, definitely not with future things. So that's not something that I will ever get to. So if I'm getting there, you better believe I'm not going to be exposing that to my little kid. So,
exactly.
there's aspects to that. One thing though, similar that you were just saying about, something that's unfriendly across different languages, what I've found is the use of the letter R in different languages. That's one thing that's a little bit annoying. So, learning to say R in South African, in Afrikaans versus in French versus in Russian versus in Spanish versus in English, all different and all in different parts of your mouth back to front.
Yeah.
That is not annoying. It is just that messes me up hard when I'm going through different languages. So I know some things in Afrikaans, and when I say that, sometimes to someone, it'll be I'm using like the French R versus the Afrikaans R, and then now I'm doing Japanese. There's some letters that just disappear altogether, and sometimes when it's got an R, I just fuck up. I'm just like, man, I'm not getting this because I'm in another language still, or my R's are in a different letter. So that's definitely, I found something to like stitch me up quite often.
Portuguese fucking bitch for it so far, because with the double R instead of really trilling like cachorro in Spanish, which would be like the little dog, I guess, something like that. Dog is cachorro. It's the exact same spelling, but
where's the R place? Like in the middle of your mouth? Where does when they say like
when it's double R like that, there's no R. It's cachorro. It's more like a ho.
Okay.
In German, it's wird. So it's like ear. It's like a kind of ear sound.
I'll see if I.
It depends on the word.
In Afrikaans, like who did this? And it's like that's on the back of the
bullshit,
mouth,
right? It's completely different.
But then French, it's slightly even further in the back of your mouth, and I'm like, man, what is the difference? And then honestly, I'm pretty sure that I fuck up the Russian every single time. Like privet. I don't know. I honestly don't know how to pronounce that. Even if I listen to it on a Google Translate, it's still not right.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, this is fucked.
Yeah.
So that stitches me up for sure.
I was going to say with Vienna, if you do want a tutor, I'm more than happy to help. $300 an hour, but
Fucking hell. I mean, I've got grandparents who speak better Spanish, so
that's at mates rates as well.
I'm gonna go at the free rates. The free rates.
How about for language learning, just in general? What's your you said you were struggling with that. What do you excel at, and are there any things you really suck at?
Suck at speaking, like a conversational level, back and forth.
Is there a reason for that though?
I just don't do it enough. That's definitely
but
the
what's
reason.
the reason? Is the reason that you don't want to make an ass out of yourself? Is the reason you don't want to spend the time trying to find someone to speak with? Is the reason you actually don't care for that? What's like the deeper reason?
I think the deeper reason is I'm not willing to put that amount of energy to get to that point.
Yeah.
Think myself, maybe not so much. Maybe more that I don't care to get to that level of conversational. One of my key things, I guess, with languages is to understand meaning and contextualization, and I can do that without the conversational aspect of it. Like I can know theoretically what it should be without me myself having to speak it, and so then get to that deeper context without knowing the deeper context, I guess, type of level. So I guess I hasn't been as fascinated with that, so that probably fills it. And just from a energy time perspective, I'm not willing to put that extra hour or 2 hours a week to do that, to get to that level, because it's just not valuable enough to whatever I'm planning to think through that. So, but then obviously that's the weakness, just conversationally with any language,
sure.
I'm just not putting myself down to that path. But then in a strength.
How about okay, sorry, go on.
The only thing I was going to say, well, then from a strength perspective, it's just my recall on words, just like individual words.
Really
I'm good with recall of just about many things.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So what would be, in terms of what you're actually trying to do with the languages and you're learning, what would be the thing that you suck at the most out of that? So not obviously you're not trying to be conversational, so it's not that you're sucking at it, you're just not doing it.
As in, like, what do I suck of the thing that I'm actually trying to do?
Yeah. Like what do you find hardest about trying to learn French or Japanese?
I don't know. I'd probably say, I won't say there's been that much difficulty in French. It's just spending the time. definitely the challenge I'm finding in Japanese is the character materialization to, or mapping it to like the pronunciation. That's been really hard.
Yeah. So
that I've been finding really
not
hard.
even grammar of
Nah,
subject,
not really.
verb,
Well,
order,
I'm not even
or
close
face.
enough in Japanese for grammar.
Okay.
I haven't found that issue in French, but it's just been the mapping of the how you pronounce, or like the pronunciation of the characters to the character. That I'm sucking at hardcore. I guess I've never come across or like learned a language that's like that, like Chinese or Korean or something similar. That I'm really, really sucking at. I think people is Hito, Hito. So I know the pronunciation, or how it would be, like, you write it down and pronounce it. People is Hito. Couldn't fucking tell you the character. I can kind of like, in my mind, see the to and the he kind of. But man, that level of mapping is going to take me a very long time. I'm still trying to understand myself personally whether I need to map it to characters or whether I don't, to know the level that I need to in Japanese. I think maybe you do, to read things and to understand things, because then you're not going to go to Japan and you don't see like, hey, this is she has long hair, right? They don't do that. It's that's what it is. And so I go, fuck, I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to learn like character mapping, and that I've not even come close to really understanding it. Really, not at all. So that's probably the most challenging at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, the thing that I struggled probably the most with, aside from just switching up, I had a real hard time when I was first learning Spanish about letting go of literal translations. So, tener, to have, I can't use that as I do in English. Like, I just can't do it. I have to change it up. So once I let go of that, it's actually been relatively easy for German to let go of some other grammar aspects related to subject, verb, order, and things like that. The hardest one, probably just the one that trips me up the most, is structure of tenses, formation, and verbs that act upon themselves. So the reflexive and pronominal ones, like agarrarse. So it's like to grab itself, or like I grabbed myself, or things like that. Suck. I still suck at that. But one thing I actually never really knew about myself was pronunciation and being able to, I suppose, link words has been really good. So Portuguese, it's very similar to Spanish, but I never really understood why people would say Portuguese speakers can understand Spanish, but Spanish can't. I always thought that was bullshit. Like, why? They're so similar. Starting to learn Portuguese, I'm like, it's just there's so many more sounds that you can make. So apple, manzana in Spanish, the A's, every one of those A's is the same, and the N is also the same. In Portuguese, there's it's like maçã, and there's a C with a fucking little tail on it. I've forgotten the word for what that tail is.
In
that's
Portuguese.
underneath the C, or just in any language you can have. That,
talking like a Spanish tilde.
It's like a character. So you've got like the ñ, which is the thing that goes the...
I think in Spanish it's la tilde.
The tilde would be...
like the top one.
Yeah. Or the accent over an A to demark when you should make that word, which letter of that word you should really mark. But in Portuguese, they have those. They also mark which letter should be accented. So instead of being like masa, it's maçã.
Right.
And the A at the end has a fucking new one on top of it, and then the E's got this triangle thing. So I'm like, this is why all these words, they're basically the same, but it's the sounds that were coming out of Portuguese speakers' mouths that was what was really tripping me up. So I think if I get those, it'll actually be a pretty expeditious process to actually start to get the rest of Portuguese going, I think. Speaking it, maybe that'll still be difficult, getting the sounds out of my mouth, but actually understanding, I think I'll be able to get to
a fair enough level that you'd want.
Pretty quickly, I think. I could be proven wrong, but I think I'll be able to get there a little bit quicker than your average bear.
Fair. I think, a lot of languages are, Latin-based at its core, have a lot of similarities, right?
Once you start get going, for sure.
Like, again, even before I ever did any, like, French learning, I could kind of understand some terminologies of French. Same with Portuguese. Yes, someone from Portuguese into Spanish can understand it easier than that, but same thing, like, before I'm doing any language, Italian numbers, Portuguese numbers, I can kind of understand them, even though I've never gone down that path. So there's a lot of like embedded learning just because there's some rooted work from a while back languages that just prevails through it. Sure, there's some differentiations, but it's much the same. I was watching, so in Drive to Survive at the moment, the latest season that I'm watching, there's a hell of a lot of languages. Like we made a comment this morning where we were watching an episode, and the more season it goes, the more different languages they're just using and just giving a lot of transcriptions at the bottom. And now I haven't done zero learning of Italian. But there's a lot of Italian speaking.
Okay, you'll be fine.
It's not all that time that I have to actually read the transcription. I can see them talking and kind of get
30 to 40%.
Yeah, like a lot of championships, campeonatos. A lot of that is very similar. So you're like, you get it. I get the whole gist of what's going on.
For sure.
So there's a lot of interest in language, which is it is good. So look, the more the merrier. But I think there's obviously some challenges embedded in what I'm doing in there with the existing stuff. For me, characters are an absolute A. Yeah. So
nice. All right, we'll leave it here for today. I'm actually going to start releasing these, I think, on a Sunday afternoon, our time, Sunday evening, just because I'm already doing the book reviews on a Monday, so that would be like double editing / double releases on the same time. So I'm going to put these on a Sunday, so just if anyone's interested in why.
Honestly, I wonder if anyone cares anymore about the release, honestly, because sometimes you mention me, I'll release it on this day and release it on that day, and I'm almost wanting to be like, does it actually matter if we want to make content that's everlasting to a certain degree?
It's the problem, I think, for us, in our case, I would say at the moment, no, because we just haven't had the ability to structure it as strictly as I would like. But mostly this is because I think I'd probably be able to, but you're all over the place, and so it's just really hard. The general advice that I've received from kind of like the best podcasters and heard from them, release at the same date at the same time. And I see the value in that because on Saturday mornings...
Who are you determining as being the best podcasters at the same time?
Definitely the ones that I want to emulate. So this is kind of like the Adam Currys, the Chris Fishers of the world.
Well, I think retrospect on that is that, yes, they are the top of podcasting in a certain degree.
Well, that I want to be.
Yeah, but do the very, very top at the broadest, I guess, aspect do that as well? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I've literally no idea. I don't think I've looked into it enough. Yeah. Like a Tim Ferriss, a Chris Williams, a Andrew Huberman, do they release things on the same time, same days? And those are the truly, I guess you'd say, the most watched, most listened.
Yeah. Once again, it's I don't want to be them. I'm emulating the ones I want to be like, right. I guess. But yeah, no, that's a good point. I don't. With regards to them, I reckon they would still, yes, do that, because there's a huge value, just for me personally, on a Saturday morning. That's when Podcasting 2.0 comes out. I wake up and it's there in my app, and it's the very first thing I do. Play that Saturday morning, and I look forward to it. Yep. It's something I really enjoy. When it doesn't come out at that time, it bugs me. It's like, oh, they didn't do an episode today. Like, why isn't it out? That sort of deal, or they had to do a different one. It throws me off my routine. With us, because we change around so much, yeah, it's probably. I think it would be good if we could get to it, but we can't.
But here's a question for you. So, because to me, that would say, so you. Maybe it isn't the case, because that sounds like, hey, the content that potentially we're going to be creating, we're wanting to maybe optimize for people listening it in the moment, not being like evergreen content.
And not even necessarily that.
But then I realize that it could also be evergreen content, even if it is being released at a particular
correct
cadence.
And then it's also, just think about TV shows, for example. Simpsons, it was always 6 p.m. on a weekday.
Yep.
What if they'd changed it to 7 p.m. someday? And it was like one day it was at 7 p.m. then the rest was 6 or something. Like, that would bug people for sure, because you get into the routine, you know it, you look for it. So it's not even necessarily related to the releasing, which I actually prefer to release things quicker, just because of what we do with the boostergrams and stuff. It works better. But even if we weren't doing that, I think the advice would still probably hold true that it's better to release it the same day at the same time if you can.
Yeah, okay.
We can't really at the moment, so it's not that big of a deal.
I mean, it's a good call out because I guess I don't absorb content just in general like I guess you do, and so that I would be interesting. So I just
you're kind of like a pick and chooser, right?
Well,
is there any podcast
not even
you
pick
listen
and choose
to
now. It's probably
dedicatedly?
changed more where I have too many. There's so many, so there's 0% chance that I can listen to every single podcast that's coming out that I've subscribed to.
Correct.
So all I do is I just go to the new episodes and just flick through things that I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'll just listen to that one. So
Yeah.
I'm not ever caring about when it came out, what it's about. So to give you an idea, at the moment, I'm listening to a lot of Andrew Huberman just because I want to. And I'm just going to Andrew Huberman's podcast and just scrolling down to the last one I ever listened to and just going through and going, not going to listen. I'll listen to this one. Cool.
Yeah, so you're in a very different mode. You're in kind of, I found a new show, I want to listen to the back catalogue. Obviously, release date doesn't matter to you because you're going through old stuff.
Do you think the general tendency, and sorry, there's a deviation, there's people who listen to our show, and there's people who listen to podcasts, content in general. Do you think people who listen to our show are there for the very latest and greatest listen? One, or are they just going to go and check out our back catalogue?
Latest
and greatest. That's what I think too. But in general, podcast listenership, is it latest and greatest, or is it same? So I think there's a big piece. So maybe I'm in the minority where I'll go back and re-listen to older podcasts.
I've done this as well,
Yeah.
for sure. And you do find gems, and you go, oh yeah, your listening behaviour changes. But the consistent ones that you come back to time after time, I think that's where it actually is important, this sort of thing.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, from a perspective here. Now we're talking a little bit meta for the podcast. That's why I want to, for book reviews and for other things I'm creating, try to put in more effort. And again, where that effort lies, I'm not sure, because I do see the benefit of releasing things in a timely manner, which is why, say, for the Mere Mortals in Motion, you're seeing it coming out on a weekly basis, and I've already got it 3 weeks in advance, and so I'll be able to have that in a cadence. But I also want to have it in a setup so that there is a potential that it's evergreen content or content that's going to be checked in on 2 years from now. Because I think there's some value in the latest and greatest in the cadence, and that brings people. But some of the true value, I think, for us at the very least, that can be brought is, something that's from 2 years ago that all of a sudden it's still popular, it's still being listened to, it's still informative. Those are the ones that I would say, hey, that's sort of content I want to create. That's both for now and a later piece.
And you can do both. I mean, I'm going to, for the book review certainly, I'm going to be focusing on shorter, sharper. I'm doing them live, and it's already paying a benefit. I've seen, I received a boostergram from Ashley Glenday. He or she, I'm not too sure, I need to find that out. But they were like, yeah, really enjoyed it. Here's some sats from a fellow Aussie. It was like, awesome.
Yep.
Incredible. Like, they were only streaming before, and then I think partly into now being able to call them out rapidly, it's already having an immediate little boon and impact. So I can do that, and then you can just release your one on a whenever schedule. Do it to the best ability you can. See what happens. Just from the amount of work that we've put into video, into time, I put in a fuck ton of effort into the latest what was it, the Value for Value show, where I went through all the different apps. That was a ridiculous amount of effort. I had to get someone else's phone to be able to use the Apple, because I don't have iOS, to use Customatic. Tons and tons of effort. Initial reaction hasn't been super huge in comparison to some other shows that I've done, which I put in significantly less effort, and it's not going to be evergreen. That's probably only going to be useful for 6 months.
I was going to say,
maybe.
It'll be outdated at some point. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know. I personally haven't seen for us. Maybe we just don't create evergreen content. Maybe we haven't done this long enough to be able to have
maybe, yeah,
something.
that's one of the golden we haven't explored, we haven't found yet. Sometimes, like I was saying, I had the book review I did on David Goggins that just absolutely went off. I don't know how much I did on the audio. I'm not sure what much I did with it. If I was trying to emulate what I did there, I'm not quite certain.
I would predict it's almost nothing to do with you, and it is everything to do with algorithms and what people were searching for. Spotify saw, and because this was only through Spotify, that's the only reason it took off.
True.
It didn't take off on Apple.
No.
Didn't take off on any of the other.
It was a very specific one.
Very specific. And what I would say is, Spotify saw people were looking for this. Your title description, I would say it's almost nothing to do with
the
what
actual
you actually
creation
created.
Yeah, so it's wild. Although I would want to check like the exact statistics of those whatever people who watch it. Did everyone watch it? 80%, 10%, 5%?
I bet it wouldn't be that much. I bet it wouldn't differ compared to other ones. And I don't want to be in the game of chasing algorithms. I think that's just a unhealthy mindset to get into. So, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe you're a fucking genius, Juan, and you.
It's probably likely.
I mean, look, if there was ever going to be a book that was your mentality, that's the one. So, so you could have created something. I'm sure I've listened to that episode, but I don't remember it being especially great.
No, nothing anymore. Although I did enjoy doing it. I do remember really enjoying doing it. I remember I put a Simpsons video in the middle of it as well. So there was aspects of fun that I did through it. So I don't know. I've done something in the latest book review which was similar to that, and I'm tempted to see if it generates something similar to what that did. Maybe in the behavior of listenership and stuff like that.
If you were making money off that, you would. You'd get demonetized /
yes, absolutely. Yep.
Strike.
I'm pretty sure it already got picked up by YouTube, at least, for being like, hey, you're using that. So
yeah,
there is ways, by the way, that you can get around that.
Value for value is what it's called.
So let's finish over there. Value for value, you just mentioned it. How can people support us here at the Mere Mortals?
So they can do it through a variety of methods. The one that we most prefer is through a boostergram. This is if you're listening in on your podcasting app. So if you're on the video, you can actually go to meremortalspodcast.com/support, and there's a bit of instructions there on how you can boost in directly from that page as well. So basically a boost is a message with a bit of Bitcoin attached, some money. Great thing with that is you can do it anywhere in the world. There's no restrictions with regards to sending money to Australia or over here or over there. No, it comes directly to us peer-to-peer. It's very, very cool. And yeah, you can also just share the show through create a clip if you want. You can do that in audio or video. Talent, if you've got some interesting language stuff, if you have the ability to pull the lever, if you're working on CRISPR and you've got some stats or some info on how you can, if you're that one Chinese guy who what was it, the baby with the
I think there's more than one now, but yes, the guy who used
it was like to make it
babies.
AIDS resistant. Right, correct. Yeah. I think there's more to that story, and that whole thing has been distorted as well, but yeah, whatever, we'll run with it for the moment.
I listened to something recently about it, but I can't remember more details.
Yeah. So yeah, time, talent, or treasure. Share the show. Send us in some of your talent if you've got anything interesting to say. We'd love to hear it. And then send us some treasure through as well. Would be very much appreciated. You can also do that through a PayPal link, which is in the show notes.
It's available. You can be the very first one, folks. You can be the very first one.
Be the first, yeah.
All right, Mere Mortals, thank you very much for tuning in. This is once again us at the Mere Mortals here outside for Meanderings. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. One out.
Going out. Bye. Thank you.